In 1667, the Dutch made a trade that sounds insane today. They handed over an entire colony, Manhattan, for a tiny, obscure island. That speck of land was the only place on Earth where nutmeg grew. At the time, it was worth more than its weight in gold. For centuries, people were obsessed with this seed. They fought brutal wars over it and wore it around their necks as a charm. They prayed it would keep the plague away, desperate for any protection against the invisible killers of the medieval world. But here's the twist. The exact same chemical trait that made it worth killing for is still landing people in the ER today. We have been using this spice for 2,000 years, yet we only recently uncovered the strange science of why it actually works. Let us travel back to medieval Europe, where the prevailing theory of disease was miasma, the belief that bad smells cause death. Nutmeg smelled expensive and exotic. To a society terrified of rotting street odors, it seemed like a divine, fragrant shield. People carried it in small, ornate containers called pomanders, genuinely convinced that the scent could hold the plague at bay. Was it just superstition? Or was there a hidden scientific reason why this seed became such a powerful cultural icon? Almost nobody in Europe knew where nutmeg originated. Arab traders controlled the root and kept the source a tightly guarded secret. The truth was hidden in the Banda Islands, a small, remote scatter of volcanoes located deep in the heart of Indonesia. By the time a shipment of nutmeg reached the markets of Venice, a single pound could cost more than a pound of gold. Let that sink in. When you sprinkle nutmeg into your latte today, you are holding what was once a global luxury commodity. Medieval doctors were not entirely wrong about its power. Nutmeg oil is loaded with compounds that can kill bacteria in a lab. It could not stop the plague, which was actually spread by fleas, but the instinct to use it was not entirely wasted. Food scientists still use nutmeg oil as a natural preservative today, as it genuinely slows bacterial growth on raw meat. However, there is a dangerous loophole. That same potent oil does something strange to the human brain too. Old world apothecaries had no idea how far that effect could go, but we are about to reveal the dark side of this seed. Before we get to the chemistry, we have to look at the human cost. Why was this tiny seed worth going to war for? By the early 1600s, the Dutch East India Company controlled part of the Banda Islands, but they wanted total, absolute dominance. That was not enough for them. They wanted the entire supply chain, and they were willing to do anything to get it. In 1621, the company's Governor-General, Jan Pieterszoon Cohen, launched a ruthless, armed campaign against the local Bandanese people. The historical record is chillingly clear. Thousands were killed, and even more were forced into slavery to serve the spice trade. In the years that followed, war, starvation, and disease decimated a population of 15,000 down to a tiny fraction. Modern historians classify this as an act of genocide, carried out solely to secure a monopoly on a kitchen spice. With the local resistance crushed, the Dutch had almost everything they wanted. But one island, Run, still belonged to the English. The tension between the two empires grew until a treaty in 1667 finally settled the dispute over their colonial territories. England kept a Dutch colony it had seized in North America, New Amsterdam, which was soon renamed New York. The Dutch got the island of Run. They finally had total control of the world's nutmeg supply, bought with the price of a city. That monopoly defined the global spice trade for the next 150 years, built entirely on a foundation of violence. But remember the emergency room visits I mentioned at the start? That is the final piece of this strange historical puzzle. First, we have to address a major plot twist. In 1770, a Frenchman named Pierre Poivre managed to smuggle nutmeg seedlings out. Yes, his name literally translates to Peter Pepper. He broke the Dutch monopoly for good, ending their era of total control. The empire built on a massacre did not even outlast the century. The secret was out, and the spice began to spread. So, what actually ties the ancient reverence, the bloody wars, and the modern medical danger together? It comes down to a compound in the oil called myristicin. It is the spice's primary active ingredient. When you use a small pinch in a pie, it is just flavor. It is totally harmless and adds that classic warmth. But eat several tablespoons at once, and the chemistry changes. People do this because it is cheap, legal, and in every kitchen. Once ingested in large quantities, myristicin is converted by your body into something chemically close to a hallucinogen. It acts as nature's own, unpredictable party drug. It also blocks an enzyme called monoamine oxidase in your system. Think of this enzyme as the cleanup crew for your brain's mood chemicals. It keeps everything balanced and functioning correctly. Block that cleanup crew, and those chemicals pile up. Fast. this leads to intense, often terrifying physical reactions. This is not just folklore. Poison control centers still field calls every single year from people who have overdosed on nutmeg. There was even a viral nutmeg challenge on social media that sent teenagers to the ER after they ate too much. The takeaway is simple. A pinch in your eggnog is perfectly fine. It always has been, and it always will be. Multiple spoonfuls, however, are not a shortcut to anything except a genuinely bad 6 hours of medical distress. So, we have come full circle. The same compound that built nutmeg's reputation as a miracle cure is a mild psychoactive. In the small doses people have cooked with for thousands of years, it does absolutely nothing dangerous. That is exactly why it survived as a kitchen staple for millennia. It was safe until someone pushed the dose too high. Push that dose up, and the chemistry flips. It turns from a warm, cozy spice into a genuine medical emergency. Nobody in 1621 had ever heard the word myristicin. They just knew this seed did something to the body that nothing else did. 400 years later, we finally understand the science. They were not wrong about its power. They just lacked the context. Today, Run Island, the place the Dutch thought was worth more than Manhattan, is a quiet, remote place. It has about 2,000 residents, no traffic lights, and the power often shuts off when the sun goes down. Manhattan, meanwhile, has over 1.6 million people and a spice aisle on every single block, still selling that same seed. It is a strange, ironic historical footnote. The island traded for a monopoly is now a sleepy outpost of history. Meanwhile, the spice itself remains a common, everyday staple in millions of homes around the entire world. It is funny how history works out. A tiny seed changed the course of empires, and we are still using it today. So, what other food mysteries should we dig into next? Tell us in the comments what ingredient we should investigate.